This week on the Big Ten Team Rivalry Show, should Penn State be concerned with their offensive showing against Illinois?
Has Ohio State finally found their offensive identity, or was it just a strong performance against an overmatched opponent?
Finally, Michigan State has announced that they will fire Mel Tucker. Is their performance against Washington indicative of things to come, or will it get even worse?
Plus, we break down the biggest Big Ten games of Week 4 and offer our predictions.
This is Team Rivalry. That is the absolute worst take that anyone has ever had, and I demand that you apologize to my brain for having to comprehend how stupid that was.
You don't know ball. It's clear you don't know ball. Honestly, when you were born, I turned to your mother and I said, I love him, but this kid's going to need therapy. And what you just said confirms all of it.
I understand that back in your day, they hadn't invented the forward pass yet, but it's the 21st century. You need to be able to throw the ball downfield.
No one's ever gotten a lacerated liver from running the halfback smash, but as long as you're admitting to prejudice against vital organs, fine.
All right, first up, looking at the picks from last week. So, we had a much better week than last week. Just a quick reminder of how this whole thing works. So we offer our predictions on what the final score is going to be. For instance, Maryland, Virginia. I called Maryland 35-14. You called 38-7 Maryland. The actual score was 42-14, which means that if you look at the offset here, I was off by 7. You were off by, what is that, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11? Yeah, that's right. And we take all of the scores for these games, add them up, add up the offsets, and boom, these are the summations of the offsets below. Whoever has the lowest number, much like in golf, wins the week. So as you can see, 175, 192, a much better week than week 2, where we were well into the 2 and 300s. I think there are probably fewer games being played. I'm not entirely sure, but whatever. Anyway, a much better week than in week 2, and those calls going on here, but absolutely none closer than our calls for the Duke Northwestern game, where we were both off by only 3 points.
Not too shabby. Yeah, I think my biggest surprise there on that Northwestern Duke game is just I really didn't expect Northwestern to do much at all, to be honest. Given that Duke is number 21, but then you don't often hear about the Duke football team. At least I feel like maybe that's just a Big Ten thing. We don't often hear about the Duke football team, so it was kind of like I don't know how to. Wasn't quite sure how to predict how Duke would do against Northwestern, knowing that Northwestern just hasn't done well against anybody. And again, they had a nice bright spot last week, and then this week they're right back in the tank. So unfortunately, that's our Wildcats.
Yeah, Northwestern's looked already just in 3 games a little bit all over the place. They had that nice win against UTEP last week, which was kind of out of nowhere, pretty solid win to as well. I do think it's kind of interesting that Duke. I mean, Duke is kind of an interesting team to look at this year because of how they knocked off Clemson in week 1. Clemson coming into the season being what a lot of people thought was going to be a playoff contender, and Duke just immediately said no to that. And so far, Duke has actually been following that up with some solid wins. Although I'm not entirely sure if they won last week, so maybe I'm speaking too soon. But nonetheless, a solid call there for the two of us. I think that's probably more indicative of what we can expect from Northwestern than what we expected from Duke. But either way, a solid call, a good call. But we also had some really, really bad calls. And I guess I'll just go ahead and start because I can't remember which one was your bad call. Um, I did not see this coming. 35-28 was my score prediction for Ohio State and Western Kentucky. So I thought Western Kentucky has a high flying, really solid offense, and they still do, I think. Their quarterback is really, really good. He really fights hard. Ohio State's got a solid defense. And also, Western Kentucky didn't really play that well on offense after all. But what really struck me is that Ohio State's offense seemed to actually hit the right note in this game. That they finally figured out what they were doing. Kyle McCord looked really good. Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of put the offense on his back, and finally they figured something out here. and that's my
Yeah,
worst call.
yeah, that was an interesting game to watch. Like as we were watching that first half, there it seemed like Ohio State just couldn't get their game together, and we actually stopped watching. Well, I think we were headed off to the Michigan game, but then to find out that they destroyed them 63-10, it was like, oh well, okay, Ohio State's back.
Yeah, that's definitely going to make the Notre Dame game really interesting this week. But your
Definitely.
worst call was
Nebraska,
Nebraska, Northern Illinois.
yeah, I was way off on that one. I guess. Well, let's see. I guess I wasn't too far off on Nebraska's score there. We've got 21. They got, I'm sorry, I picked 21. They got 35. Oh, I was way off. Never mind. That's just why it's my
Bro.
worst game. Yeah, I just wasn't ready for Nebraska to get their feet under them yet. I thought they had a couple more weeks to go, but apparently Northern Illinois just decided not to show up. Because I even had, yeah, I had them scoring 20 points and they only got 11. So yeah, I don't know what's happening there. Right now, I think Nebraska is very much a wild card. Just as we've said before, Matt Rule in his first year at any school has been disastrous, but then he's brought it up after that. So, congrats to them. It was a great job on Nebraska's part.
Yeah, Northern Illinois has, I think, struggled quite a bit these last few years. Interestingly enough, Rocky Lombardi is their quarterback, the Michigan State transfer, and he transferred from Michigan State to Northern Illinois because he wasn't doing so
Oh,
well. So I
that's
think
right. I forgot about that.
yeah, he might not still be doing very well. Biggest surprise for the two of us was the Washington Michigan State game. I think we were both expecting Michigan State to not do very well, but I don't know that we were expecting them to do this badly. What
Yeah, they
surprised you the most
just.
about this?
I was watching the highlights today, and man, it just looked like Michigan State just looked absolutely lost. Washington was just rolling all over them through the entire game. I'm actually surprised after watching those highlights. I'm surprised Washington only got 41. Michigan State did have a handful of knockout plays where they got the ball downfield. That touchdown they made was a pretty fantastic touchdown.
Hmm.
Just at the end of the game when it didn't help. But yeah, I had a feeling Michigan State was going to be struggling with everything going on with the coach. But man, didn't think that it would be that bad. You know, when you've got D'Antonio on the sidelines, it seems like they should have been able to rally in some fashion, but they didn't.
I think two things are interesting about this game is that I think we knew Michigan State secondary was still going to be the defense's weak point. I don't think that we expected them to still be this weak
Hmm.
because, I mean, Michael Penix just had his way with the defense. Wherever he wanted to put the ball was going to go there and they were going to get 20, 30 yards out of every single pass. The other
Yeah.
thing is too is that touchdown that they scored in garbage time was actually Catton Hauser, the former third string, now second string quarterback. Um, and people on Twitter are talking, should he be the starter now? So all of the love Noah Kim was getting for the first couple of weeks, and now all of a sudden he needs to be benched.
Oof.
You know, Sparty fans hate to say it, but I think your problems run a lot deeper than Noah Kim having a bad game against a top 10 opponent.
Yeah.
In any case, those are the picks, and let's go ahead and dive into some of these a little bit deeper. All right, we're back. We're going to go over some games here. We've got, first up, we've got Penn State, Illinois. We're going to go through each of the games. Well, we got three games. First up, Penn State, Illinois. We got 5 minutes for each game. Starting now. Go.
Okay, so we watched the Penn State Illinois game, and it looked like, well, okay, no, I got to back up. Now I'm going to waste all of my time. I got to remind everybody, I wanted Illinois to win the West this year. I feel like last year they were so close to it that this year they were going to do it, and then this year, I don't know what's going on with Belima, but something's not clicking over there, because when we watched this Penn State Illinois game, it I'm trying to remember the exact stuff that happened in the first quarter. I don't remember it quite right, but it seemed like Illinois was doing something, and
Mm-hmm.
then they just self-destructed repeatedly. And I don't know if Penn State actually won that game or if Illinois lost that game. Obviously, in the final score, Penn State comes away with the win. But to me, it looked an awful lot like Illinois just self destructed, and that was the end of that game. Penn State didn't really even have to do anything. So, from that perspective, I don't know if it was even a good test for Penn State. I just know that it was a horrible showing for Illinois. And that's my main takeaway from that game.
Yeah, I think Illinois' defense really kept him in the game, and then like obviously Drew Alar for Penn State was getting his first road start, and so that's in a tougher environment, not the toughest, but a tougher environment. So he's obviously a little bit shaky on the road.
Mm-hmm.
What I do think is interesting though, so Penn State got 383 yards total yards. Okay, it's good. That's not. I mean, I feel like that's not necessarily out of hand per se, but that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Illinois got 354 yards of total offense. So they're honestly pretty close, like only about 29 yards apart. Penn State got 19 first downs. Illinois got 20. Possession was 31 minutes in favor, or 31 minutes for Penn State, 28 minutes for Illinois. So still pretty close there. The one thing that I think did it was Illinois has 5 turnovers
Mm-hmm.
in this game. Because like when we were watching it, you remember thinking like, okay, Illinois finally gets on a roll. They're finally doing something, and then Luke Altmaier throws an interception. So
Yep.
he had 4 interceptions. He went 15 for 28. He really didn't have a good game. And yet Illinois was still kind of in this game going into the second half. Like it was only, let's see, 16-7 going into the second half. But then Illinois' defense gives up a touchdown in both of the remaining quarters, so that kind of falls apart. But if Illinois' offense could actually produce something, and maybe that's a testament to Penn State's defense, but also I can't get over like 4 interceptions. That that just seems like Luke Altmaier was kind of throwing the game away rather than Penn State actually taking the game away, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and you would think it seems self evident if you don't have the ball, you can't score. So
Mm-hmm.
even with 28 minutes of time of possession, if they're giving up that ball every time they get into the end zone or the red zone, not in the end zone, but in the red zone,
Mm-hmm.
then you can have the ball for 59 minutes. If you can't get it to the other side of that line, all the other team has to do is get a field goal.
Right.
And you can dominate a game and still lose from that perspective. And I know we've heard before that the most important stat in any given game is that turnover rate. If you're coughing up the ball, you're just not going to win. Which leads me to the other, or goes back to the other point. Then is Penn State, even with all of Illinois' mistakes, like you just said, they still only had 19 first downs to Illinois' 20. They still only had the same number of third down conversions. They still didn't get as many passing yards, or well, they got more rushing yards, but it was still a reasonably close game stats wise. Um, even the score is, I mean, you're only off by 17 points. That's a 3 score game, but it's a 2.5 score game. Um, Illinois doesn't cough up the ball 4 times. That score is going to be a lot closer. So honestly, it says a lot about Illinois' ball control, but it also doesn't say very much for Penn State's offense.
Yeah, so we got 20 seconds here. I guess I'll just wrap up and say like, yeah, I think you're right. I think Illinois literally threw the game away, but they threw the interceptions deep into the opposing into Penn State territory, and so Penn State was able to take the ball away, prevent those scores, and that's what kept Illinois from getting back into it. But that's also giving Illinois' defense a chance to kind of stay in it. So it wasn't
Right.
necessarily Penn State taking the game away. Like I said, it was more. This felt a lot more like Illinois self-destructing. But
Yeah.
we are out of time on that one, so let's go ahead and head over to Western Kentucky at Ohio State. We got 5 minutes on the clock, starting right now. Your thoughts?
I mean, this is Ohio State back to form, really. I think, it was a slow start. Obviously, that first quarter was 3-7, but we saw them do this a lot last season, where they didn't do very much in the first quarter and then just run away with it in the rest of the game. This one, they at least did it starting in the second quarter. I mean, going into that second quarter, 7-3, and then ending the game 63-10. I mean, that's the Ohio State we all know and don't care much about. Go blue.
Yep. Yeah, I think when I called this game to be a lot closer because I don't trust Ohio State's defense, and I still don't. But I was also like, I've seen Western Kentucky play over the years. They have a high flying offense. They score a lot of points. Clearly not this time. So I think this game was more of a referendum on the relationship between Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr. Jr. Wow. All right. I think that this game was a referendum on that relationship because so Kyle McCord threw for 318 yards and 3 touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr. had 126 yards on 5 receptions for a 25-yard average. So I'm not saying that he's carrying the receiving core because Cade Stover, who I think is a tight end, got 90 yards on 5 receptions, and then Emeka Ibuka, who is a tight end, got 57 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Emeka Ibuka is absolutely their red zone guy. But Marvin Harrison Jr. and then sometimes Cade Stover, I think, are really their guys that take them down the field. And I don't know that that's necessarily always been the case with Ohio State's offense, that they've got one receiver that they really rely on to take them all the way down the field, because they still have Julian Fleming and Carnell Tate, who I believe are both deep threat kind of guys, and they didn't really show up in this game. You got Carnell Tate with 40 yards, not bad. That's on 2 receptions, so a good average there, so I don't think they targeted him very much. Maybe he had some incompletions. Julian Fleming only got 17 yards, and he's supposed to be a big name on their offense. That being said, I think what will be interesting, and we'll get into this a little bit more when we talk about the Notre Dame game, but I think what will be interesting is to see if Ohio State builds on that a little bit more, because we were told that this Ohio State receiving core is the best in the country, and so far it's just the one guy doing the work right now. I mean, not all the work, it's still a tandem, but either they're not targeting everybody or he's just that good that they want to make sure to get him into midseason form early.
Right. And just real quick, how much time do we have?
2 minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes. All right. Looking at the production now, this goes back to the clock management. They've got 63 points on 27 minutes compared to Western Kentucky's 10 points on 32 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So Western Kentucky actually controlled more of the clock, but had horrible production.
Right.
And then obviously in the stats, I mean, Ohio State outclassed Western Kentucky just down the line. I don't know. I can't say anything else other than this is your classic Big Ten mismatch. This is one of those non-conference games that they shouldn't have played. They need tougher opponents.
Yeah, I'm trying to look here because
Except that it's always good for those other teams to get that exposure too. So
right.
trying not to cut that out, given what we're all about here on this channel.
1, 2. I'm looking at turnovers for. Yep. Okay. So
Yeah, you had four for Western Kentucky and 2 for Ohio State.
okay. So you want to know something interesting? So 4 of those turnovers, one of them was recovered on the Western Kentucky 27. So really good field position for Ohio State's offense there. So that's going to end in a touchdown. And it did. Emeka Ibuka for 15 yards. Western Kentucky then went 3 and out on the Ohio State 42. So that's also really good field position. We got about 15 seconds, so I'll wrap this up. Right. But then in the second half, Western Kentucky fumbles the ball and Ohio State returns it for a touchdown. And then there's a pick 6 towards the end of the game. So a lot of Ohio State's points, or at least 14 of those points, were defensive scores, and then the other, or 2 more scores, were also from having really good field position. So what happens if Western Kentucky doesn't turn the ball over? Is the score a little bit more manageable? But that to say, I'm not totally sold that this is Ohio State figuring it out on offense. I think that they just had really good field position. Not to say that they
Well,
can't, but
and decent defense
right, yeah.
in that case. Yeah.
Yeah, to me that's better defense, which, it's you have a defense and you have an offense. They're supposed to work together in that sort of a way.
Yep.
But that's all right. So that's it for that game. Moving on to Washington at Michigan State. 5 minutes. Go. Rip.
Oh man. Yeah, what do you say about this game? So after everything Michigan State has been through over the last couple of weeks with Mel Tucker, this is exactly what none of us wanted to see or hope for. We thought, there's a couple of different ways this can go. Well, there's 100 different ways this can go. One way they can win, the other way they can lose, and 98 other ways.
Right.
Um, right. We had all hoped that this, what happened would be Michigan State would come together and be like, no, this isn't going to take us down. We're going to come back and fight. We're Michigan State. We're tough. And man, they just got embarrassed. Washington just ran all over them, and there wasn't a blessed thing Michigan State could do. It was even as a Michigan fan, this was almost hard to watch. Um, I yeah. What else do you say? If they can't, I mean, looking at the stats here, I mean, Washington dominated top to bottom, just everywhere. And well, yeah, Washington even dominated in the penalties. There was a lot of penalties in this game. Washington had 11 for 110 yards. Michigan State had 11 for 83 yards. So Michigan State wins in the penalty battle.
Gotta have
You know,
something, I guess.
gotta have something, yeah. And I don't know. I think this doesn't bode well for the rest of their season. I don't think this bodes well for next year when Washington is part of the Big Ten. Unless Michigan State can figure out a way to turn this ship around at this point. I think Mel Tucker was a little bit more devastating than we expected. And I personally, and I've said it on Twitter or X already, that I think Michigan State needs to clean house in that athletic department and start over.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that, but in terms of this being difficult to watch, even as a Michigan fan, I'm just gonna say speak for yourself. I enjoyed every. Well,
I just want to dig it in there.
I didn't watch the game because we were on our way to a game, but yeah, I'm not gonna say that I'm not enjoying it because I'm not enjoying the Mel Tucker thing. Like that sucks. It does. But I think even if the Mel Tucker thing didn't happen, they're still getting blown out in this game. So I'm just gonna remove that from the picture. I really enjoy this final score. I'm sorry. I do. But look, so I think you're right. Michigan State, this is kind of indicative of a program that's on complete collapse. And as soon as the firing of Mel Tucker becomes official, because right now they've just served him notice or intent to fire, so they haven't actually fired him yet. But as soon as they do, the transfer portal opens for 30 days. So players will be allowed to leave. How many players do you think are going to leave?
Yeah, they're going to be bleeding out pretty bad.
I mean, I bet that most of those players were spending this game thinking about where they were going to play next.
Yep.
So I don't think that I don't well, I have a prediction for the Maryland game. I won't spoil it just yet. I think you can probably tell what it is already, but I don't think that they're going to do very well the rest of the season at all. I would call a bowl game into question because they still need 4 wins. And I don't know that you can find 4 wins on well, I can't remember their schedule right now. But in any case, I think this is just a program in a downward spiral that cannot be stopped. And honestly, I'm like wondering who would even want to step into this? Like what coach can they go after that would want to step into this? Like at this point, I'm like, you might only be able to bring back Mark D'Antonio for like 3-4 years just to get some stability in there and see if he can pull someone else in. But that's just to fix the culture problem, which actually kind of started under D'Antonio, so I'm not even sure that's a good idea. But in any case, we got 25 seconds. Do you have any last thoughts?
Yeah, my only thought was there's already word out of who are they going to pick for their next coach. But then I was also just thinking Noah Kim, their player of the week. Uh, Man, if he leaves, if he's gone, in the next couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right. I think it's just over. Just look at the rest of the season as practice.
Right. All right, so that's what we've got for our game highlights. Up next will be our this upcoming week picks. Picks for the upcoming week. Good lord, we're gonna pick some games and it's gonna be great. All right, we're back. We got some picks coming up here. All right, so we're gonna make like a whole thing out of this. This week we're not gonna do the whole thing, but I'll explain the whole thing, and then next week when it actually happens, that way anybody who's watching, you know what's going on. So basically, what we got going on is we do picks every single week. We pick the scores, we pick the winners, we make our score predictions, and then we take the actual score, subtract our score prediction, and then whatever the offset is, we add all of that together, and then whoever's got the fewest amount of points, because it's the offset, it's not the actual score, wins the week. Whoever wins the week, or enough, all of the weeks, or enough of the weeks, most of the weeks, whatever, whoever's got the lowest score at the end of the season gets dinner at the expense of the other person. So usually him buying me dinner. That's normally how it works. So what we're gonna do from now on is we're going to do a coin toss. Whoever gets the coin toss wins
If
the
I
coin
win
toss.
this year, I want to go to Ruth's Chris. I don't know if there's one anywhere near us, but that's what I want.
There's one in Grand Rapids. I've been there. It's delicious, and you're freaking on.
All right.
All right. Really hope I win. So we're going to do a coin toss. Whoever wins the coin toss then decides if they want to pick the home teams or the away teams. The reason you'd want to pick a home team or away team is to kind of figure out who's playing where. So this week, or Rutgers is playing at Michigan. Michigan's probably going to win. Although if they play the same way against Rutgers as they did Bowling Green, maybe not. Don't know. But that's where the strategy comes in, because then you get bonus points if your team that you called wins, or that you're, because with the coin toss. In any case, I don't know. Did that explain it okay, or?
That was my coin. Boom. There it is.
Great. All right. It'll make a lot more sense when we actually do it next week. But
Stop lying. None of this makes sense.
Right.
Just pick a score.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Each of us is going to get 1 minute to talk
What's the
about
over-under on us finishing on time?
No one's cashing that
keep
bet.
interrupting.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
That's great. All right, so we're going to cover the 3 bigger games, and then we're going to speed round the rest of the games. So the 3 big games that we're covering this week: Penn State, Iowa, Michigan, Rutgers, and Ohio State, Notre Dame. I'm going to cover all of the home teams. He's going to cover the away teams. Each of us gets a minute to talk about how the team that we're picking is going to win. Not picking, but whichever team that we were assigned is going to win. You have to do it in a minute. If you don't, you get publicly humiliated.
Publicly?
Yes.
We never discussed publicly.
It's in your contract.
I don't have a contract.
You're going to need to talk to HR about that.
All right. I'm going to show everybody your baby picture.
All right.
Start the clock. Is it my turn?
Yeah, you got 1 minute. Penn State, Iowa up first. Ready? Go.
All right, we got number 24, Iowa, going up against number 7, Penn State. The series stands at 15-16 Penn State. These are historically 2 fairly evenly matched teams, but lately not so much. Kirk Ferentz, I'm not the only one who thinks he's going to retire. I think that plays into this. The whiteout at Penn State also plays into this. Penn State is allegedly trying to win the East and go to the Big Ten championship. They've got a huge mountain ahead of them to do that. Ultimately, I think Penn State is going to win this game, primarily because it's going to be at Penn State during a whiteout at night. I think that crowd's going to be going crazy. I think the team's going to be going crazy. And I think you've got Penn State winning 27-14. This after their alleged victory over Illinois Whether or not that was Penn State winning or Illinois losing, we don't know. Iowa did just come off of a big Western win, winning over Western 41-10, and that's my pick. 27-14 Penn State.
27-14 Penn State. You know, I think you were supposed to talk because you had away games or away teams. So I think you were supposed to talk about how Iowa was going to win that game, and all you said was basically it's hopeless and you suck.
I did, but
That's what happened.
yeah, all right. Well, I did that wrong. I'm sorry.
Well, it's a test. It's good. It's all right. We're working the bugs out this new system this week.
Yep.
Maybe we'll actually follow our work assignments closer next week.
Next week.
Yeah,
All right, you ready?
I'm ready. Do it up.
Ready, set, go.
Iowa is without three of their best offensive players this week, and McNamara has been banged up basically all offseason and all regular season. He already wasn't a mobile quarterback, and now he's really not a mobile quarterback with whichever knee is the one that's hurting him. It's hurting him. That's not good for them. Drew Allar, on the other hand, for Penn State, is going to face the toughest defense that he'll have faced yet this year, but Penn State will not be required to score a lot of points given Iowa's offensive situation. Penn State is also far more balanced on offense than Iowa is, with far more big playability. Penn State is built to score faster with more frequency than Iowa's offense is, and even if Iowa's defense has a great game, they're still not going to stop Penn State enough times to cover the spread. Penn State's going to win this game. I can't remember much. Hold on. Hang on. Crap, why did I do this? There it is. Penn State's going to win this game 24-14.
1. Nice.
Boom.
24-14.
24-14.
Ooh. All right. We're close on that one.
Oh, man. All right, up next, we've got Michigan hosting Rutgers. Michigan not looking great against Bowling Green, and Rutgers looking fantastic against everybody they've played. You're on the clock. Your time starts now.
Ooh. All right. So we've got Rutgers is unranked, although Greg Schiano is turning this team around. They're doing much better this year than they did last year. Much is probably an exaggeration, but they are doing better this year than they did last year. Michigan is doing about the same as they did last year at this point in time. Although, no, I take that back. Michigan actually was scoring more points in their first 3 games than they have in these 3 games. So Michigan is not doing better, but they're still winning. Both teams are 3-0. It's been said multiple times that this is going to be a dogfight because Rutgers has given Michigan grief every time they've played, and yet Michigan is still 8-1 in the series. Harbaugh is back. That's going to be key. I think the team is going to be fired up. I think they were getting a little tired of not seeing him, so they're going to be fired up from that. And I think Harbaugh is going to want to make a statement to show that he is back and that the team is on track to get to that national championship. Ultimately, I've got Michigan 35-17.
Boom. Nice job. That's good stuff. I like it.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Set, go.
The Bowling Green State University game was a complete and total outlier. Harbaugh's back, baby. We've got some consistency on the sidelines now, man. That's what I'm talking about. He's going to focus on the run game early, and you bet your patootie that offensive line is going to answer the call. They're going to open up some holes that Rutgers defense was not prepared to fill. That's going to take off the pressure from J.J. McCarthy. He's not going to feel the need to force the ball downfield nearly as much as he did against Bowling Green. Bowling Green was stacking the box, and yet Corum was still able to bust off a couple of runs. Michigan still looked good in that game despite 3 bad decisions by J.J. That's not going to be the case in this game because of how well that run game is going to do. And J.J. is going to throw some passes in the second half. Those are going to look real good too. Also, look for Michigan starters to be back on the defense. To this point, Michigan has played mostly second stringers in the defense, especially in the secondary. You've got the starters coming back on defense. Michigan is going to win this game. They're going to win it rather handedly, although Rutgers is not that bad. I'm trying to find my score. Hold on here. It's Michigan 45-21.
Boom. I like it. Breathe.
I don't know how they do this professionally.
They get paid.
Fair. That's fair. All right. Up next, we've got Ohio State and Notre Dame. Man, that's going to be a good game. I'm excited for it. You have 60 seconds. Your time starts right now.
Yeah, honestly, outside of being a Michigan fan, this is the second most important game to watch this week. Number 6 Ohio State up against number 9 Notre Dame. Notre Dame is 4-0 because they got a week 0 game. Ohio State is 3-0. Ohio State has not been on their regular game until this last week. Uh, this game is going to be so close that these teams are just going to be bruised and beaten. They're going to be crawling off the field when this game is over. Uh, Notre Dame has not beaten Ohio State in their last five games. Um, they lost to they lost to OSU at OSU in 22 by 11 points, 21-10. Uh, Ryan Day, I think, is he needs to make a statement too, because he needs to prove that he is going to win the East Division and get his team back into a national championship. Uh, they're going to be fighting as hard as they can to prove that last week was not an anomaly. And I think OSU is going to squeak by on this one, 35-32.
Nice. All right. Good stuff. I'm trying to remember what the Notre Dame's coach's name is because that's kind of important for the point that I was going to make. Marcus Freeman.
Marcus Freeman.
That's it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Ready?
All right, I'm ready.
Set. Go.
Sam Hartman is everything this Notre Dame offense needed to become elite, and so far that is exactly what they have been. They took out Navy, and I understand it's Navy. They're not exactly to write home about this year, but they still did it, and they did it fairly impressively with him slinging the ball around like the gunslinger that he is. They also went on the road and took out an NC State team that's got a brand new offensive coordinator. Pretty excited about that system, and yet still they couldn't put Notre Dame away. In fact, Notre Dame ran away with that game late in the fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter, I can't remember. Whatever. In any case, Sam Hartman's already got 1,000 yards passing with 13 touchdowns. Fun fact, that's more than Joe Montana, who I did not realize played at Notre Dame, or was it Dan Marino? I can't remember. They do have a great running back as well in, what is his name? Something Estime or Estimate? I can't remember. Estime, I can't remember his first name. I'm sorry, dude. He's already surpassed 500 yards on the season with, are you kidding me? I'm already almost done? Shoot, he's got 5 touchdowns. The one thing I'd like to see tightened up is the defense to see if they can knock out Ohio State's offense or at least cause Kyle McCord a little bit of issues. But in the end, I think Notre Dame does it 35-24.
All right, you went 13 seconds over, so I think I get an extra 13 points off my score.
Is that what we're doing?
I feel like we should. All you people watching, put it in the comments. Should I get a bonus because Mac went over by 13 seconds? I think I should. Put your comments in the comments.
That's complete crap.
It's not complete crap.
You have your picks for everybody else?
I do.
All right. Let's start.
I don't know how good they are, but I have picks.
That's fine. We got. Hold up. Let me do this real quick. So we got 2 minutes to get through our speed round picks. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Up first is Wisconsin-Purdue. Go.
28-24 Wisconsin.
I have Wisconsin 31-21. Not really sure what to expect for either of them. Up next, we have FAU and Illinois. Go.
I've got Illinois 24-21.
I have Illinois figuring some stuff out on offense. It's going to be the Illini 41-14. Maryland at Michigan State.
I think it's going to be another tough one for Michigan State, but I think they're going to do a little bit better. I've got 35-14 Maryland.
A little bit better is 35-14. Wow.
Well, last week was 7 points. This week, 14 points. Maryland's on a roll. I think Maryland's going to be tough.
That's true. Okay, so yeah, I also think Maryland's on a roll. They're looking good. I've got Maryland 31-17. La Tech at Nebraska.
I think Nebraska is going to come out of their shell on this one. Come out of their husk. Come out of their husk on this one. 27-14 Nebraska.
All right, Nebraska just benched their starting quarterback last week, and they're going to bench him again this week. I can't remember the second stringer's name, but he is starting this week. So I've got Nebraska 31-10 simply because La Tech is that weak. Up next, Akron at Indiana.
Indiana has been meh so far, but I think their meh is better than Akron's meh. So I'm going 21-14 Indiana.
I wouldn't discount Indiana's defense a little bit, actually. I think they might be a little bit better than we thought. On offense, I'd like to see some things, at least against a competent defense, but I don't know. In any case, I've got Indiana blowing out Akron 34-3. And last up, we've got Minnesota at Northwestern.
Northwestern, as we know, is struggling struggling desperately to put any kind of a team together. Minnesota is putting a team together. I think they have this one handily, 35-7 Minnesota.
So I think Minnesota's offense has really not shown us everything that they can do properly. So I think they score a few more points. Northwestern, despite the really good win against UTEP, I don't think that they have enough against Minnesota this week. So I'm giving the Gophers a 34-14 victory. And that's it. All right, those are the picks. Everybody, let us know what you thought. If you liked them, if you didn't, let us know in the comments. If you didn't like the picks, just maybe like the video anyway because it's a nice thing to do. Go ahead and subscribe if you want more incredibly trash takes. And any last words?
Make football fun again. If you like to watch football just to have fun, this is the channel for you. Thank you to everybody who's already watching.
All right, and that's it for us this week. We'll see you next week.
See ya. Oops. This is Big Ten Team Rivalry.